Hello again everyone and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John and as always thank you so much for being here. Good topic? Let's do it. So I saw a thing about the creepiest things you've ever done, but it got me thinking, what's the creepiest thing that's ever happened to you? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. When I was on that thread and trying to think of my own 2 cents to put in, I realized by far more creepy things and much more creepy things have happened to me instead of the other way around. So that influenced me to start this thread. First, when I was about 5 or 6, my mom took me to her doctor appointment. When she was at the desk paying, I was sitting in a chair in the waiting room. This old man with a huge beard was sitting next to me, and he slowly put his hand across his armrest and onto mine, with his finger slightly over my armrest and almost hitting my leg. He slowly jerked his fingers, signaling he wanted to hold my hand. He had a smile on his face, and honestly, being that age, he reminded me of my grandfather. I thought all old people were loving grandparents who loved children, so I held his hand. He was slowly trying to get closer to me. I didn't really feel this was wrong, but did start to feel a little awkward after a minute of holding his hand. Finally, my mom turned around after paying, sees this, and flips on the guy, starts screaming at him, telling him he's a sick man and should be in jail. Told the secretary to call the police. I don't know if they did, most likely they did, but I don't remember, but forgot about it until that thread. If my mom wasn't there, or this guy was more aggressive and fast-paced, I probably would have been AR'd and killed. Second, there was this girl in high school who was absolutely obsessed with me. I started to feel creeped out around her and could never figure out why. At this time, I just knew she had an overly huge crush on me, but that was it. Anyway, she invited me over to her house to hook up. After we hook up, her dad calls her and tells her he'll be home in an hour. She immediately gets up and says, "I have to take a shower." So she goes and takes a shower. I go on her computer to kill some time while she was washing up, and no lie, I open a folder and see all Photoshop pictures of me holding her, all of that. It was kind of funny and pathetic at first. Then I saw she had about 60 Photoshopped photos of me, and some of them were disturbing. I started to feel like I needed to run. It started feeling like I was in a horror movie in one of those scenes where the victim realizes he's in the house of the killer, then the killer is nowhere to be found, until they pop out and murder the person. I, driven by curiosity, needed to find more. I saw a letter she wrote to me, saved in the same folder, telling her she'd kill me before she saw me with anybody else. She'd do anything to get pregnant by me. This is when I just finished having sex with her. All that. I never felt violated and creeped out in my entire life. I was 9 at the time, sitting in my parents' car in a parking lot of a Kmart. Me being my inquisitive self, I would look around the lot at other cars and the goings and comings. Soon enough, a red pickup truck pulled up beside me with quite disheveled-looking man sitting behind the wheel. I just stared at him because he had a look of great sadness within his eyes. He stared blankly at the dash for a while. After some time, he starts yelling and then breaks down into tears. Immediately after breaking into tears, he reaches into the glove compartment and pulls out a pistol. He checks the magazine and points it into the roof of his mouth and starts screaming names. Names of his kids, I guess. He does this for a few more minutes until he realizes a 9-year-old boy is staring lockjawed at him. He just stares at me with the gun in his lap and then smiles and blows me a kiss. He left sometime after the staring contest. My dad came back from the store and asked why I looked so pale. I didn't say a word until we got home, and I immediately vomited into the toilet, feeling so nervous about the entire thing. Well, I'm glad for his sake and your sake, and I guess everybody's sake, that he didn't follow through with that in front of you. Hopefully he didn't do it later. I broke up with the girl and told her, no, I don't still want to be friends or talk to her or anything. 2 months later, she burned her house down so that I would talk to her again. She came up to me in school and told me that she did it because she missed me and wanted me back. My girlfriend is a sleepwalker. It only really comes on when she's incredibly exhausted or stressed out. We had just come back from Tokyo, first night back in our bed. I got up to take a leak, and when I turned around, she was standing in the door, eyes semi-open but glazed over, face slack. She surprised me, but I thought she just needed to use the bathroom. but she just stood there and wouldn't let me pass until I spoke to her. "Hey, we have to get out of here. They're coming for us." The hairs on my neck immediately stood up. The way she said it was so cold and mechanical. It was like it wasn't even her voice. That's when I realized she was sleepwalking. "Go back to bed." "Okay." And she spun around and shuffled off to bed. I know it doesn't sound like much, but it was creepy. It's like she was possessed. I didn't even get back in the bed with her. I went to the living room and slept on the couch. AOL chat room when I was 15. Some douche starts douching, insulting everyone. I found cyber fights entertaining back then, so I go with it. After a while, he tells me my address, full name, and a link with a picture of me on it from my old school's website that I didn't even know about. And he said he's going to kill me. I machoed up saying, "Bring it," and slept with a weapon handy and still do. He never showed up as far as I know, and I'm pretty sure I'm still alive. When I was 17, I had to do a work-study program for a charity that dealt with R people in their 20s and 30s. I worked with a 34-year-old R-man named Ryan. I spent 3 weeks training him to do simple person-to-person interactions so he could be a Walmart greeter or something. I came home after a session to find police at my house as well as ambulances in the driveway. The cops told me my mother was fine, but she had been attacked and cut on her right arm. It turns out that the police were called when Ryan couldn't be contacted. It turns out he had been masturbating to pictures of me. He wanted my picture to show his mom or something. And he had become obsessed at the point where he walked into my house when I was gone with a knife, probably to attack or harm me. The most effed up part of the story is that while he was obviously mentally disabled, it turns out that he wasn't mentally R'd, but rather posing as an R person to meet high school boys. When I was 15, I got a job at a local grocery store as a deli clerk. One day, this older guy, who was a semi-regular customer, apparently decided to give me a gift, one of those giant teddy bears you get as a prize at the Midway. It was really dirty, and there was a hole between its legs into which he had placed a gigantic dildo. The store manager called the cops and banned the guy from the store, but it was weeks before I stopped looking over my shoulder on my way home. Okay, so you're underage. It's instantly creepy. But as I was reading it, I was like, well, I mean, teddy bear is not the worst thing. Oh, no, never mind. So, yeah, bad. I lived in the Middle East when I was in high school, and one day as I was walking home from school, and this old Arab man in an old Mercedes pulled up like he was lost and rolled down his windows and leaned out like he was about to ask for directions. So I walked over, and he asked if I know if there's a massage parlor nearby. That immediately struck me as odd, so I said I didn't know and walked on. But he kept up with me and said that since I was there, wasn't a massage parlor around, maybe I could give him a massage. I ignored him and started walking faster, and he starts offering me a lift home. I tell him to leave me alone and keep walking, but he just keeps following me. So I had to duck into the nearest house, pretending it was mine, and hid in their garden until I was sure the guy was gone, and then continue on my way home. I'm still suspicious of men in old Mercedes to this day. It was my 16th birthday, and my stepmom and I went to go get massages. After filling out some paperwork, they told us that there were no available females to do our massages. I'm a girl, so we both said we would be okay with guys. Through the whole massage, the masseuse kept complimenting me, and it was just generally awkward. He also asked how old I was, 16, and he said he was like 26. At the end of the massage, he asked me for my phone number. What? It was super creepy, but I didn't want to be rude, so I just said I didn't live in the state. A few weeks later, I get a bunch of missed calls on my phone with messages from the guy. He got my cell phone number off the release paperwork I filled out when we got to the massage place. I never returned any of his calls, but he continued to call me every so often for the next few months. While in college, I came back to my apartment one afternoon to find some girl I didn't know in my living room. This wasn't all that unusual, as my roommates often had visitors at all hours, and she said she knew at least one of them. After some casual banter, she announced she needed to go grocery shopping, and she offered to cook me dinner if I went with her and helped her out. She was kinda cute, so I decided to walk with her and see what happened. At the supermarket, she asked me what I wanted to eat, and then invited me to her place, where she cooked a meal for us. After dinner, we had sex through the night into the wee hours. Taking a break from sexy time, we talked about random stuff. One of the things we talked about was a local guy our age who had apparently killed his parents and disappeared. The guy's whereabouts were, at the time, still unknown, and there was a massive police manhunt going on to locate him. Well, at one point the girl says, "I don't think he did it." She sounded so sure of this that I asked why she thought that, when all the news stories strongly suggested his guilt. To my shock, she said, "Because he is or was my boyfriend." I realized then that I was in the bed of the girlfriend of a murderer at large. I didn't sleep the rest of the night for fear that a killer was going to jump out of a closet and hack me to bits. The next morning, I politely excused myself and racked my brain the entire way back to my place about how and if I should distance myself from this person. Yeah. On the one hand, she was attractive, cooked a nice meal, and seemed to want to have sex with me. Big plus. On the other hand, she might have a jealous boyfriend who liked to kill people. The if part was answered when I got to my apartment to find my roommates all gathered in the living room. They'd been wondering where I'd been. Turns out some girl had seen me on the street and followed me home a day or so before, then came back and more or less invited herself in. The girl they were talking about was the girl who I'd spent the night with. So the girlfriend of a murderer at large had stalked me and seduced me. She confirmed this a couple days later when I finally worked up the nerve to talk to her again for the last time. The ex was found some weeks later. He had indeed killed his family, and a couple more people along the way before he was captured. When I was about 9, I was outside in front of my apartment with my brothers, 3 and 6. We were sitting on a blanket having a pretend picnic. We see this guy in a baby blue van drive by. At first, we think nothing of it, but then he proceeds to drive by 3 or 4 more times. We notice he stops the van and he's staring at us. He waves us over to the van. I get freaked out and grabbed my brothers and went into the house and locked the doors and told my mom what happened. Later on that night, when we were watching the news, the guy we saw earlier was on the news for kidnapping a kid in our neighborhood. Creepy. Could have been us. I'm a female who worked at GNC a couple years back, and I had one kind of creepy encounter while I worked there. This 45 to 50-ish year old walks in and I give the usual, "How can I help you, yada yada." Well, the guy ends up giving me his entire life story of how he lost his wife and kids because of alcohol and how he's turning over a new leaf in life. Also, I was pretty sure he was high or drunk during the one-sided conversation, and it took forever for him to leave. About 2 hours after he leaves, the store phone rings and my manager picks it up. Then he hands the phone to me. The same weirdo had memorized my name from my name tag and looked up the store phone number just to ask for me by name, tell me I was cute, and ask me to go to the pool at his health club with him. Keep in mind that I only looked about 16 at the time. I told him no thanks, obviously, and that I was leaving town forever, lol. My manager was more freaked out about it than I was, though. He thought it was my dad on the phone or something, but when he realized it was some old creep, he wouldn't let me close the store by himself for a while after that. My friends and I were downtown one day and decided to eat lunch at a shitty food court in some old mall. Most of the places were closed down except a Subway and a non-chain pizza place. We each ordered a slice of pepperoni and a fountain drink from the man behind the counter. The first thing that was weird was that he wasn't wearing a uniform, just plain clothes. The second thing that was off was that he charged us both 2 completely different prices, despite the fact that we each ordered the same thing. What we each paid was less than the listed price for our items on the menu. My friends and I laugh about it, eat our food, and go on with our day. Half an hour later, we both sit down in a hotel lobby and each end up falling asleep at roughly the same time and waking up a good hour later. We're both freaked out that we would each fall asleep for no reason, and both noticed that we felt pretty shitty. A few hours later, we decided to get dinner at the Subway at the food court. As we enter, we noticed there are 2 new, freaked out looking people working at the pizza place. They both are wearing uniforms. At the other exit of the food court on the opposite side, we see paramedics taking a gurney to an ambulance. Strapped to the gurney is the man that served us our pizza. A janitor was mopping up some kind of mess in front of the pizza place. We both have no clue what had happened, and we're too weirded out to even want to know or ask the people at the pizza place what the hell had happened.